You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't.
He knew I was going to hit him on something, and he guessed it would be women, and he got some line worked up.
Your Twitter account?
Fine, we forged forward. The convention center was laughing, but I was going to get through the rest of my question.
For the record, it was well beyond Rosie O'Donnell.
Yes, I'm sure it was.
Your Twitter account has several disparaging comments about women's looks. You once told a contestant on Celebrity Apprentice it would be a pretty picture to see her on her knees. Does that sound to you like the temperament of a man we should elect as president?
What I say is what I say. And honestly, Megyn, if you don't like it, I'm sorry. I've been very nice to you, although I could probably maybe not be based on the way you have treated me, but I wouldn't do that.
The way Trump sees media, the way he sees life, is all they like me or they don't like me. And in that moment, I got moved from the she likes me category into the she doesn't like me. And I believe that night the anger was real.
He lit up Twitter.
Wow, Megyn Kelly really bombed tonight. People are going wild on Twitter. Funny to watch.
On the phone with CNN, he went further.
What is it with you and Megyn Kelly?
She starts asking me all sorts of ridiculous questions, and, you know, you could see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever, but...
Trump recognized that it was a good storyline, and he kept fuel going under that fire because he knew some portion of his audience loved to see him challenging, a powerful woman, never mind a woman at Fox. And so he accurately deduced that this would drive his numbers up with some segment of his base.
Trump had a powerful ally in the attack on Kelly. The right-wing website Breitbart and its leader, Steve Bannon.
Fox has chosen a side. It's so evident in that debate that they're there to kneecap Donald Trump, okay? They're there to take him out. And that's when we go, okay, we run 20 stories on Megyn Kelly.
Megyn Kelly, I got a question for you, and I really think a lot of people need to get this from you. Back in 2016, when you asked those questions, and Donald Trump came after you, and so did Steve Bannon, because you dared to bring up the weird problem that Trump has when it comes to women. But now that we know how deeply connected Trump is to Epstein, the multiple women, the photograph of the check for $22,000 and change, which is a very strange number, but it potentially shows that maybe the girls that were being sexually abused were actually their depreciation values were syndicated, were sold, essentially turning the victims into tax shelters. Trump does the drawing and all these things, but the biggest one to me that has always stayed in my soul when it came to Trump is Katie Johnson. See, Katie Johnson, you see, Trump paid for 4 encounters with her. She was kept in Manhattan. She was kept about a 15-minute walk from Trump Tower, according to her testimony. You know what Trump really liked her to do? Trump liked her to dress up like Trump's daughter. Blonde hair, all that stuff. In fact, she refers to it multiple times, and at the end of this, you're going to hear her testimony in her own words. Trump liked her because she was blonde, looked like his daughter Ivanka, and all those times in that time where Trump was sexualizing his own daughter. This was around the time where he is basically having Epstein provide him a lookalike, according to Katie Johnson at least, of his own daughter to play around with. But that's not the real problem. The problem is the 4th encounter. You see, the 4th encounter explains this other tradition that Trump has. You see, I'm a guy. I like wrestling, right? Guys sometimes have violent fantasies. But all of us have to understand that when we have these violent fantasies, that we have to have these safety words. These words that when they say stop, you stop, because the thin line between having a fantasy that would be, for example, a bondage forced sex fantasy, which is what Trump paid Epstein to provide him with that girl, at least according to Katie Johnson, who looked like his daughter, who, by the way, is blonde-haired like you, to do that to her. And she gave, the safe word, which as far as like a 14-year-old is probably please stop, and looking over at Tiffany, who was the person who was nurturing her through this process to make certain that she was okay with being sexually abused by adult men. She was asking Tiffany to stop. The reports are in her testimony is that Trump and Epstein threatened to kill her to keep her quiet. But you know what? That's not the only problem. You see, men who tend to have kind of, let's say, violent fantasies, more violent, sex stuff, like Trump does, apparently, at least according to that. See, after the sexual encounter that took place with Katie Johnson, which was about 1993, 94, 95, that's when E. Jean Carroll and Trump pins her to the wall, shoves his fingers inside of her without her approval. That's number two of a person of whom Trump utilizes his violence, that gets him going. You know who else experienced it? His first wife, when he came home. In fact, she alleged in the divorce filings that Trump, sexually abused her after he lost a lot of money. But that's not the only one. The final one is Stormy Daniels. See, Stormy Daniels describes the first encounter that she had with Trump as being quite violent. Trump literally jumped on her, forced her. But the problem is when you're an adult film actress, you get pretty tough when it comes to that sort of thing, right? They are this way. She understands that if she probably took that to court, her saying that she's an adult film actress, that she would have to defend all the movies that she ever made. And, it would be her fault and all that stuff, which unfortunately, actresses in adult films tend to be subject to these problems. That's what Trump was doing. And now you're in like a total defense of him? Total defense of a man who said what he said about you. And not only said that, not only shoving his fingers inside of E. Jean Carroll without her consent, being a friend with Epstein for decades while having all these relationships. On top of that, after Epstein came a man by the name of Tony Lazzaro, who, if you go to Twitter, you want to look up his handle, it's GOP Tony. He was the other person that Trump knew who provided sex with underage girls, was involved in that profession. And that's not all. Trump, his Middle East advisor in that room with him was sexually abusing children. This is what you defend. Why would you? What, you have daughters? You're allowing a man who knows Epstein, has girls who are connected to Epstein who say that Trump assaulted them and paid for their services. And you're willing to forgive that. Why? Please explain this. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please get this to Megyn Kelly, because we need to keep asking, why on earth are you accepting a man who is like that, who has sexually abused multiple women and girls who were clients of Epstein? Oh yeah, and the one-stop parties. The parties that Trump himself put on. So yeah, like, share, subscribe. This is going to kind of be a fairly long video because it's going to have a lot more coming up after this. So please like, share, subscribe.
If Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. You know?
Stop it! Oh, it's so weird. Stop it.
You know what? You are sick.
I mean, isn't it terrible?
Yeah.
How
Well, you're
terrible.
known for saying
Is that
outrageous
terrible?
things,
Weird.
Mr.
Just like
Trump.
Who are you, Woody Allen?
Donald Trump knew that I was 13 because the first night that I was there, Tiffany actually suggested that, she had a whole bunch of different wigs, and I expressed interest in them. I always told her that I would love to walk around with blue hair, and so I tried some on, and there was a blonde wig that she said that looked great on me. So I wore that wig, and Donald Trump had specifically asked about me because I remind him of his daughter, and she said, well, she's 13 as well. The encounter that I had with Donald Trump, Tiffany approached me about a rape scene that was supposed to be played out, and I didn't like the sound of that at all. But Tiffany promised, assured me that it wasn't going to be, if it was anything I wasn't comfortable with, we could stop. That she would be right there, and that it wouldn't get out of hand, and that it was a fantasy, like it wasn't really going to happen. And so I told her that I would. She basically, Tiffany was always nice to me. It wasn't that I trusted her, else and I wouldn't always trusted her or done what she asked me to. But she was there, and he came in, and I was basically tied to a bed with pantyhose, and he tied him. They were so tight it hurt to even lay there. And I tried to say something, and it was like, he just, shut up, shut up, bitch. This was basically like he was being really, really rough. And I understand. It just didn't seem like a fantasy. And I started to get scared, and he was, basically ripping my clothes off, and I was actually I got freaked out. I told him that I didn't want to do this. I was, I screamed over for Tiffany. She was like, Mr. Trump, she's only, this is scaring her. And he's like, oh, you shut up too. He just turned into this animal. It was like a completely different person. It was like everyone in the room was scared of him, and I was. It was like I couldn't do anything about it, and he ripped off all my clothes, and he started to basically have sex with me, and I was screaming because I'd never had sex before. It was my first time, and Tiffany was yelling at him too. She was saying that I was a virgin, and he told us to just shut the fuck up, and just basically took my virginity while I was crying and telling him to stop. And that's basically begging for him to just stop. And the next thing that Tiffany approached me with was that he had a fantasy where he walked in on his maids, basically making out, and that it was some type of fantasy for him. So she asked, I mean, at that point, I was like, I don't want to be involved with anything that has to do with him. But she's like, you were just basically the other one. So there's nothing that you will have to do. Just don't, he's requesting you to be involved. So I reluctantly, I felt like I didn't have a choice there, but it was basically he's walking in, his two maids. I was one of the maids. I was the white maid. And there was a Spanish girl, Maria, who was the Hispanic maid. And we were making out, and he walks in, and he gets really angry and threatens to call immigration on Maria if she doesn't come over and make things right and give him a blowjob. So while she is over there giving him a blowjob, I am just trying to, I'm supposed to look scared, like, oh no, and cleaning up things and pretending like I'm trying to go back to my job as a maid. And then he's being so rude to Maria. I felt so bad for her, even though I guess it just didn't seem like a fantasy. It didn't seem like it's the weirdest fantasy as far as that. He was threatening to call immigration on her, so that she didn't know how to, she wasn't even near going down to give him, perform oral sex on him before he slapped her away and said, what are you doing? You need to put a condom on, and she's trying to, I'm so sorry. And he's like, you can't even understand what you're saying, speak English, He called her derogatory comments. And then he's like, you know what? You don't know what you're doing. Have her come over and show you how it's done. And so I said that I didn't, I had to go over there or else he was going to call immigration on Maria. I didn't know if it was true or not, but I felt that, he said that if I didn't show her how to perform oral sex on him, then he was going to call immigration on her and then get rid of us both. It was anything that was in relation to him getting off or being satisfied or happy had to do with him being in power, but extreme power. And it's very hard to even, it was always intimidating when he was like that. It was always, you didn't really know if it was true or, like if you refused to play along, would he really call immigration on Maria? Would he really get rid of us both? And I didn't even want to know what that meant. I always didn't, it wasn't a game. It just felt like it wasn't a game. Yeah. The one night that I had the blonde wig on.
His name is Andy Lucchese. He was a friend of Donald Trump's in the 90s. Andy was a successful model who still does modeling to this day, working for Lock Management. Andy's face may seem familiar. He was the face of Tommy Bahama for over a decade. And in Michael Gross's article that ended up being published by the Daily Beast, for some unknown reason, Andy Lucchese allowed Gross to attach his name to his quotes.
That I was a recruiter for the parties. As for the parties themselves, there was cocaine around. Donald Trump did not do cocaine. He was in control of himself. Girls? Well, of course. But did he have sex with his female party guests? So, he's a man with a woman. How old were they? A lot of girls, 14, look 24. That's as juicy as I can get. I never asked how old they were. I just partook.
He was a powerful GOP donor and political operative, and now he'll be spending 21 years in prison. Anton Lazzaro was sentenced today for sex trafficking minors after he was found guilty of those crimes in March. Fox 9's Karen Scullin now with what happened in court and how he got to this point. Karen?
32-year-old Anton Tony Lazzaro will be 51 years old when he gets out of federal prison. From there, it's 5 years on supervised release.
Anton Tony Lazzaro was becoming a big GOP donor and political activist in Minneapolis, but now he's heading to prison. Prosecutors say Lazzaro targeted young girls and gave the 15 and 16-year-olds cash and gifts, and in exchange, the girls would Uber to his upscale condo for sex. Today, federal prosecutors said Anton Lazzaro was a predator who hid in plain sight. He was a sex trafficker who camouflaged his true nature with his wealth and privilege. The case started back in August of 2021 when Lazzaro was arrested, leading to a shakeup in the GOP, including the resignation of party chair Jennifer Carnahan